I stood in front of the closet, the door yawning open with a groan like something dying slow. Inside, bathed in the sickly flicker of a naked bulb, sat countless of enormous glass jars. Each was filled with a thick amber fluid that clung to the sides like syrup. Suspended inside them were heads, real ones, human, perfectly preserved, eyes open, skin pale and bloated, mouths slightly agape as if caught mid-scream. They hovered in the fluid like grotesque snow globes. This was my morning ritual, but it never felt like my choice. I watched my own hand reach up, fingers trembling slightly, hovering indecisively. It was like I was just a passenger. Some deeper thing inside me decided who I'd be today. I never understood it, never questioned it. Everything in my mind crackled like a broken transmission, my thoughts flickering in and out, never settling. Memories surfaced only in brief, distorted flashes, as if viewed through shattered glass. Faces, words, entire moments twisted into static before vanishing again, leaving behind nothing but a hum of confusion. Like my life was being dubbed over by someone else's tape. At this point, I didn't fight it anymore. I just waited to become. My body wasn't strong. It was rail thin, skin clinging to bone like wet paper. I moved stiffly, like a puppet with damp strings. My limbs worked, sure, but they felt borrowed. My arms were long, marked with scars, strange bruises, and patches of something gray-green that smelled like rot. My legs dragged slightly. Each step made a squelching sound, like I was walking through something too soft. But I moved. The thing inside made sure of that. Yesterday's head still sat off to the side, in its own cracked jar, not on the shelf with the others. It didn't belong there. Ellis Thorne. His name still echoed somewhere in the back of my mind, like a warning I was already ignoring. His head bobbed in the murky liquid, mouth curled in a smug half-smile. His eyes were wide open, and they watched me like he was still alive in there. When I wore Ellis, everything became smooth and slick. The voice I spoke with was calm, almost soothing, perfect for confession. I walked the streets whispering blessings into the ears of the weak, the broken, the devout. Then I took them, one by one, into basements, alleyways, into pews behind locked doors. I turned scripture into a weapon, replaced holy water with acid, cut a woman open from collarbone to pelvis while softly reciting Psalm 23. And through it all, I felt it. The euphoria, the holiness and the desecration, the feeling of becoming something divine through violence. My hand, steadier now, rose toward the middle jar. A woman's head floated inside, her features locked in a frozen rictus of rage and agony. My hand hovered in front of the jar for a few seconds, fingers grazing the cold glass, tracing the fog that bloomed from inside. I didn't need to open it. Not today. I already knew what was in there, what she was. Just looking at her was enough to stir it all back up. Her name was Dr. Miriam Vale. The memory crept in slow, like rot through floorboards. Her head drifted in the thick amber fluid, her hair unraveling around her like strands of oil-soaked seaweed. Her mouth was sewn shut with thick black wire, looped so tightly it had sliced through both cheeks, exposing her molars in a grotesque grin. Her eye sockets were hollow, but not empty. Inside them twitched something pale and soft, worm-like, still alive, or maybe just refusing to die. A thick, clumsy suture traced a line from one ear to the other, holding together the top of her skull like the lid of a broken jar. I didn't need to lift the jar or touch the flesh. I'd warn her. I remembered. It started with the sting, nerves threading into mine like hot wires. Then her mind poured in, thick and heavy, like sludge through a funnel. She had been a surgeon, respected, applauded, a pioneer. But something had broken in her long before I ever touched her. She stopped seeing patients and started seeing projects. They brought her into the hospitals like a ghost. No credentials, no records, just a name whispered by people too scared to say more. She worked in places no one should have access to. Morgues, abandoned wings, underlit basements where the flicker of fluorescent lights barely cut through the dark. I saw it all. She didn't just cut people open. She rearranged them. A boy with lungs stitched into his abdomen. A woman whose arms were replaced with the legs of a corpse. Organs mixed and matched like a puzzle. Eyes where ears should be. Mouths in stomachs. A man whose ribcage had been bent backward and reassembled into a crown around his spine. She did it all without anesthesia. She said pain was proof the soul was still inside. I remember standing over one of her tables, hands moving without my permission, sewing a second face onto someone's chest. I remember her joy, the thrill that flooded me when something moved that shouldn't have, when something screamed without a mouth. She called it evolution. She called it art. And for 5 long days, I called it me. Even now, with her sealed in glass, I still feel her in the nerves behind my eyes. A twitch in my fingers. A whisper behind my thoughts. I haven't worn her in over a week. But sometimes I wake up thinking I'm back in that room. The floor sticky with blood. The walls breathing like lungs. Dr. Miriam Vale doesn't let go easy. But today felt off. Like the air had shifted just slightly out of tune. The silence in the room wasn't empty. It was waiting. Even the bulb above me sputtered slower, its rhythm hesitant, like it too sensed a boundary being approached. My hand rose again, but not with the same limp obedience as before. It moved with a kind of gravity, like the decision had already been made somewhere deep in the architecture of me, somewhere I'd never had access to. Jar number 27. This jar sat lower than the others, closer to the floor, almost like it had been forgotten or hidden. Dust clung to the glass, and the amber inside was darker than the rest. nearly brown, like molasses left too long in the heat. The thing inside was obscured, shadowed, but it didn't matter. I knew this was the one. My fingers rested against the jar. I felt the hum before I heard it, like something behind the fluid had just woken up. A vibration in my bones, subtle but steady. The way thunder sometimes comes before the lightning. I didn't know their name, didn't need to. Some part of me had been saving this one for last, for when it mattered. For now. My other hand rose and found the lid, and as I twisted it, the seal broke with a wet pop. A small bubble rose from inside, like breath held too long, finally released. The hum came instantly, low and bone deep, like recognition. The fluid inside quivered, almost excited. Something pressed back against the jar, against the glass, eager, hungry, like the other heads before. It was never a choice, just its turn. But as the scent hit me, thick, metallic, sweet, I felt it. That pull, that flicker, that quiet click of something unlocking behind my eyes. There was no fear, just the question, who will I be this time?